G'day guys, Jason from the Udder Farm here. We're actually on the Udder Farm tonight. So as you can see, Nicole's not here. She's had a late run from work, so she had to stop in at the trial property and grab a few supplies. We're having spuds tonight, my favourite. It's handy having the fire going, and what I'll do is I'll start answering. I'll ask myself the questions and I'll also answer them, and hopefully Nick will turn up halfway through and she can take over. Otherwise, doing it solo. So I'll start with the first question, guys. It's from A. Davis. Any issues with condensation in the feeder? So I'm assuming we're talking about the mineral feeder here. I'm down in Victoria, and after 6 months have found that this salt especially we're very wet on cold nights. And then he goes on to say, my cattle smash the seaweed and DE granules, so that's diatomaceous earth, and he mixes it 50-50, followed by salt and also a small amount of sulfur. The other three barely get touched. I have rationed the seaweed as it's a very expensive product. I must admit it is expensive, and mine also smash it. So what I'll answer in two questions. As for the salt and the condensation in the mineral feeder, see, salt contains magnesium chloride, which is naturally hygroscopic. So which basically hygroscopic means that it takes in water, holds and stores moisture from the atmosphere. Hence why it's happening to you at winter time, because obviously there's a load more moisture in the air in winter with the dew than there is in summer. The same thing happens here. We also get it up here in the middle of summer. If we have a downpour or a wet summer or storm season, the next days afterwards, if we have days of rain, it's that humid. When the sun finally comes out, the humidity in the air, the salt absorbs that in, being hygroscopic, and holds it to a point of saturation, and you'll actually see it running out of the mineral feeder. So we also have it up here, and like I said, it skyrockets when the humidity after rain. And Nicole's got a salt lamp at home. She has it inside, and same thing with that. Really wet, humid days after the rain events have gone, it happens probably once every 18 months. You'll see the actual salt lamp actually just start flooding out the saucepan, the saucer I should say, of salty water, because it's taken it that much and then it just dumps it out. But it doesn't happen very often, say, because it's a big lump of salt. So probably every 18 months it'll just dump out the moisture, and then it's a mess. We've got to clean them up off the floor. So yes, we also, with that, we smash the salt up as best we can, and we put a fresh batch with it, and the cows consume it. So, or you can just dump it, but we find if we smash it up and put some fresh stuff with it, they'll take it. I think I can hear Nicole coming out, so she'll be in time for the second question. So what else is there? So you'll find we have two other minerals within the mineral feeder that also go hard. So copper sulfate's another one, because it's a form of salt which also sets hard, and it's natural forming. And the other one is dolomite. See, dolomite contains two salts, so it's naturally forming from sedimentary rock. So what it is, it's calcium carbonate and magnesium carbonate. So they're the two in dolomite, and that also sets hard in wet, humid condition, but nowhere near as much as the salt, because like I said, it is 100% hygroscopic. The other two set hard. As for the copper sulfate, it's hard to break that down. It goes really hard. Salt at least breaks down because the granules is a lot bigger, but it's very fine, the copper sulfate, and it's hard to smash that down into small enough chunks where they'll eat it. So generally we find ourselves having to dump that and put fresh stuff in. And the dolomite, you can mix it in a little bit. It doesn't go as hard as the other two. So what I might do, guys, is I think, oh hang on, I've just been answering this. Nick's just back in the car in now. So I'll just finish this question, and then I will get Nick to jump in and ask me the other two. So the second part of that question is, my cattle smash the seaweed and diatomaceous earth with a small amount of sulfur. The others barely get touched. So I find that the cattle at home, their preference is they'll always go for the seaweed. They will smash the seaweed like they do when we put a bit of grain in there. So we influenced grain in there when we first started feeding them to bring them over to the mineral feed, if you've seen those videos, because they weren't coming near it. We know we would bring them in because of the grain, and then we weaned them off the grain, and now they're touching the other salts. But, the other minerals in there. So my cattle, yes, they'll eat seaweed, followed by the salt, and then it's diatomaceous earth. So they are the main three. I think it's similar to what A. Davies as his also eats. So, and also mine eat a small amount of ag lime and the copper sulfate, and the others don't get touched. But over time, they will take that. Remember, they're only consuming what they need or what they're deficient in or what they're not getting out of the ground or pasture. So what I might do, I see Nick just pulled up now. I might get her to jump in and she can ask the other 2 questions. And we're back. This is the first time we've had 2 parts turn around the fire. So obviously you can see Nicole's finally made it. She's clicking the fingers and she's ready for part B or round 2.
I sure am.
She's losing her voice, so I think she's had a big day looking after kids today at kindy.
Yep, just a little bit of talking, a little bit of explaining.
We've only got 2 questions, so I gave her the big question, so I think I've given Nick the small one, so I don't want to hurt her losing her voice the rest of the night.
You're looking after me again, are you, Dale?
I always look after you, you know what it's like, and you don't look after that drink, the dogs are going to drink it. Rightio.
I deserve this, puppy.
Oh, she deserves it, don't you, puppies? It's getting cold now, guys.
Okay, so from Miles Smith, we've got, "G'day Jason, is the aim to eventually not need to put out minerals with a fully diverse pasture base? The assumption being that the cattle are getting all their balanced requirements from the sward."
Can you read that again? Only joking. You sound a horse.
I thought it was serious that time.
Only joking. So I would say this question would be yes and no. So the reason I say yes and no is I say the idea is because a lot of Australian soil is lacking minerals and vitamins, so it's depleted. So the idea of the mineral feeder is to see the cows will self-medicate from the mineral feeder and get what they require out of the mineral feeder. So they'll go around and selectively medicate what they require because they're not getting it in the grass pasture, like you said, the sward. So, but having said that, 80% of that mineral is passed out of the animal in either the urine or manure. So it's going back in the ground, and it will, over time, over years, will build up in the ground. So then it'll come through into the pastures. So over time, you find that they'll be eating less because they're getting it from the grass and the pasture. So you won't have to put it in as much. There'll be some point years down the track, there'll only be a top up, and it's very, very small amounts at that. So that was the no question, sorry, the yes part of it. And now it was confusing myself now.
I know, I can see that.
But the no side would be no, I'll never get rid of it. It'll always stay there because not only am I trying to build the ground back, but I've got specific minerals in there. Well, actually not specific. A lot of those minerals in there contain trace elements with help with controlling the parasites.
I was going to say that
the
too.
buffalo fly, I don't think you guys know, I'm mixing a bit of garlic in there with now too to let off a bit of an odour. I'll try that. So a lot of it in there is to control parasites, buffalo flies, worms, ticks. So they will always stay there. So rather than use a lot of chemicals, I still use chemicals on ticks because ticks here, we still haven't broken the cycle. So I don't worm, but I do put pour on and inject for ticks because they are bad here in Queensland, especially on this property, but I don't worm. But
that's our next step for the ticks, isn't it?
So we're going to try and break the cycle this year. So there'll be a few videos coming out on that.
Yeah.
But no, so I'll always offer it to them because I know the parasites will always be buffalo flies. No matter what you do, you're always going to get buffalo fly in hot season up here. And there's always going to be a certain amount of ticks. Worms, not so much because we're not grazing them down beyond that 2/3 height of that plant. You only get the worm issue when you graze them in the dirt and the parasites are right there. Continual grazing back and forwards when they've got to go past their manure, they're going to get a lot more worms and issues with parasites. On here in the other farm, we are continual grazing, but on the trial property, we don't. So out here in the next 12 months, I hope, we're hoping 12 months, within 12 months, 18 months at the most, we want to start cell grazing here. So they won't be going over their species and we'll be grazing here to only 2/3 height. So hopefully that'll control a lot of the parasites. It's just the flies and hopefully we can get on top of the ticks, but always going to offer it to them.
Yeah.
Because the parasites will be here, especially flies. They'll always come, especially for neighbouring properties, are being grazed down. So there are cattle on either side, or the whole area is cattle. So the flies will come in. So always going to be, but the expense will drop because it's only as they require, because a lot of it's going to be coming out of the grass.
Yeah, we don't have enough swallows, do we?
No, we're going to put birds' nests up too for
Yeah,
swallows. So.
yeah. But it's actually, it's interesting, isn't it? Like when you put out the selection of the mineral feeder, and it's funny to watch which ones they sniff and then go to, because they actually do know.
Nick actually missed the first question I answered when you're back in the car, and there's a big bit on what they eat most from the last question from A. Davey. So I've gone into that a fair bit.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Right?
I enjoy watching them. Yeah,
No.
because you can actually see.
She enjoys watching me work.
No.
More so than the animals eat mineral feed. No, she's joking.
No, it's funny. They know what they are lacking, and it's nice to watch them do it.
Yeah. I think we've got one more left. I hope we've got daylight. I hope you guys can see us.
They can see me.
Yeah. She's the shining light.
Okay.
Halo over the head. Oh. So this is the first for everything. We had part 2 last night, and we finished it off. And when we looked through the camera, you couldn't even see myself and Nicole. We're just a glow in the background from the fire. So this is part 3. This is the longest Q&A we've ever had. Our timing's pretty poor when it comes winter time. We haven't done one for a while. We didn't realise it gets dark real fast out here. So what I'll do is I'll hand it over to Nicole. Actually, it got down to 4 degrees last night in the tent. So,
that was just this morning.
Yeah. So I'll hand it over to Nicole, and she'll ask me the last question.
Okay. This one is from Rob Hill. Hi, Rob.
Rob.
And he's asked, how often do you move them?
Well, I can answer that I've got to answer that probably 2 or 3 different ways, because at home on the trial property, we have 4 pretty well mature head of cattle, and they're 1 animal unit each, equivalent, an AUE. If you're not sure what an AUE or an animal unit equivalent is, I done a video, it'd be a month or so ago now. Jump back and have a look at that. It's very beneficial when you're grazing with different size animals and also various livestock. It works out your livestock sizes, whether it be cattle, sheep, horses, goat. It tells you what they are compared to an animal unit equivalent. One is a nursing mother. It's a full-grown heifer nursing a calf under 3 months age. That's equivalent to 1 animal unit, and then it gives the breakdown from there. So I won't go too much on about it. Jump back and grab that video. It's very beneficial.
Very informative.
So we got 4 heifers. They're pretty well fully grown, so they're 4 animal units. And we put them in an area there on the trial property on 0.1 of an acre. So I graze 0.1 of an acre for 12 hours with those 4 animal units, or 4 fully grown heifers, and then I move them after 12 hours. So then from 12 to the 24-hour mark, they've got another 0.1. So roughly it's 0.1 of an acre for 12-hour period, and then another 0.1 after the second 12. So over a day, they're covering 0.2 of an acre in a 24-hour period. So that's one part of the question. The second part is, I bought 4 new heifers. You would have noticed about a month ago now. I done a video on them, picking them up on the truck, delivering them to the property, and also grazing on the trial property. So because they're only yearlings, they're only just over 1 year old, they're 0.6 of an animal unit. So I did say my 4 heifers are about 1 animal unit. So there's the 4. These being 0.6 only come to 2.4 animal units in comparison. So those ones, Rob, I put them in the same area. I put them over the same 0.1 of an acre, but it took them 20 hours to graze through to get down to that 50%, 60% mark left remaining. Grazing at 1/3 height off my pasture than it did my normal heifers. Because of the size, they don't need the animal unit equivalent chart. If you have a look, it actually breaks down not only the size of the animal, but how much they can consume a day. So they don't need to consume as much as a fully grown 1 animal unit equivalent does in a day to keep them in optimal condition. So they were taking 0.2 of an acre a day. That was taking 40 hours. So I put them in, come out the next day. And like I said, every 20 hours I was moving them, because they're only a smaller size and they didn't need the energy to sustain optimal condition because they're a smaller animal. Now out here on the other farm where we are now, they're continual grazing. So it's a different story out here because we're still in the process of putting our timeless electric fence system up. Bro, in the next 18 months, well and truly, I want to be cell grazing out of here. We'll have the watering system in. That's a big video. And fencing system, I've been doing videos all the way through. So hopefully we'll be cell grazing out here well and truly within the next 18 months. So there's a lot of work. There's only myself and Nicole doing the work. So I'm
in our spare time.
In the spare time from work. So, yeah. So that's probably it. I think I've answered that question. Good question, Rob. If you've got any more questions, mate, if I haven't answered any, or that's to any of you people out there in the past, if I've got Q&A questions and you still got questions about my answers, just by all means, just punch through another question and we'll bring it up in the Q&A. We've got 3 or 4 behind, I think, because we've been that busy. We've still got a few more Q&As we've got to punch through in the next few months to catch up with the questions. So thank you guys for supporting the channel, throwing us questions.
Thank you.
It's really enjoyable. And like I said, I answer all the questions that come through to me. So
yeah, and it's the only time I get to see him sit down.
Yeah,
Well, it is.
Unlike Nicole, like sitting there and watching me work. But anyway, so as you can see, this is an add-on to the end of the Q&A. We forgot to mention it during the video. So the most important thing is that come August, we're going to be heading up to Mount Isa Rodeo, which is the biggest rodeo in the Southern Hemisphere in Australia.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
34,000 odd people and over a 4-day event. So we're excited. We're staying in one of the, we're going to take the car up, but we're staying in one of the tents they've already got set up. So they've got a few hundred tents for people to purchase on their tickets rather than take your own car, because we've done most of the trip. So we're just going to fly up there and get away for 4 days. And also that's between the 9th, 10th and 11th of August, because I know I'm up there for my birthday. So I know it's during that period. And then we got the country music muster, the Gympie Country Music Muster at Emmamore State Forest. It's outside of Gympie, and that is in August.
The end of
August, 24th or something, around that. And it's another 4-day event. So so what we're going to do, guys, is like we done the CMC, we're going to offer you guys, if you guys come up and introduce yourselves and say g'day to us, those that come up and have a chat, we've got some presents. We got stubby cools and hats we're taking with us. We'll take a selection, a few, maybe 3 or 4, 5 of each or something, 4 of each.
Yeah.
And those that come up and introduce themselves and say g'day, you get to choose whether you want a hat or a stubby cooler. So that'll be for the rodeo and also for the muster. Yeah. So both, jumping early, guys. We'll be walking around. I think we plan taking up our work shirt. So
yeah, I might wear a dress one day though.
You haven't got a logo on the dress.
Oh, well maybe we need to think about that then.
Anyway, you'll have to you have to remember our faces or our work shirt, or just know what it look like, and come up and say g'day and introduce yourselves to get those prizes. Yeah. And yes, that's probably it.
Yeah, I think so.
Now we've got to head off and have breakfast.
Yeah. And you can give away your stubby curl, it's not mine.
Oh, I don't want yours, because yours is well and truly worn out. Righto, guys.
Well, they work.
Anyway, guys, hope you have a good morning, a terrific afternoon, and an awesome evening, guys. Wherever you're watching us from, and we'll catch you later.
So you're going to cook me breakfast now?
You didn't bring anything from home. If you've got to bring anything, we can starve. Another cup of tea. Let's go get some breakfast.